Hey guys, welcome back to episode 13. And today I'm going to sit down and talk performance with Brandon Van Matre. And I'll let him go ahead and do a brief introduction. So, Brandon, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. As I said, I'm Brandon Van Matre. From Muncie, Indiana. I went to undergrad college at Huntington University. Played baseball there for 4 years. Was primarily a first baseman, DH. After that, I went to Ball State, where I got my master's degree in sport performance. That was in 2014 was when I graduated from Ball State. So been off and on training people here and there. I mean, I worked in a private setting. I actually worked up at Huntington for a year with the baseball team and the men's soccer team. But then just recently started a new venture this year as the head strength conditioning coach at Westdale High School, which is a small 1A school here in Muncie. So really excited to get their program up and running and kind of going from there.
Gotcha. So a little bit of a shock for a lot of the athletes coming in and actually having a strength and conditioning coach, because you're their first hire, right? As far as strength coach goes.
Yes, I am. Definitely is something new for them. They are they're beginning to understand a lot more, but they definitely were not quite as sure on some of the stuff I initially was telling them. I'm not doing anything too crazy, or I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're still squatting, we're still deadlifting. It's just my ways of going about it, teaching them how to move properly, and moving in a full range of motion, doing stuff the right way, doing stuff fast, working on creating power as opposed to just trying to pick up more weight. So they're slowly learning, but still a little ways to go from it.
Yeah, because we were talking a few minutes ago about, kind of that block zero, where you're going to start. Everybody has to start with a base of learning the patterns, and then they could gradually add weight. Because you're telling me when you came in, there were a lot of kids who were doing basically half squats with way too much weight, and be willing to take a step back and reduce the weight, move through a complete range of motion. How'd that process go for you?
It's been slow. That was kind of one of my the current 4-week progression we're working on. Everybody's doing. I actually have written in their program to do speed squats. So I'm purposely making them back down the weight, and I make them all work in a better range of motion than what they could do or thought they could do previously. I definitely won't say they're all perfect by any means, but even in saying that, I don't squat perfectly every time. So, right. But it's definitely a lot better. And I kind of I tell them they have to do those three or four sets of speed reps, working in that full range of motion. They have to stay under a certain amount of weight comparatively what their max is, or what was close to their max. And once they get those in, then we can put some more weight on and work on also getting strong. But it's kind of not that I'm trying to trick them, but get them used to squatting in a full range of motion with some weight on their back, and then slowly be able to build that weight up to where they're still comfortable doing it. It'll take some time, but I'm not in any major rush for it.
Yeah, because that seems like definitely the general culture of high school weight rooms is everybody wants to put more weight on the bar, and they don't want to take the time to build the capacity or to work on speed.
Yeah.
So what's your general philosophy, and what kind of methods are you using right now? Are you guys doing like 2 speed days a week, 2 max effort days? I mean, what's it?
So as of now, especially because we're still early on, we're still very much learning certain things. I haven't necessarily adopted or taken over too many different, for sure, principles on it. Throughout the week, we train, or we lift weights Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We usually do some form of speed and agility work on Tuesday, Thursday. Those days, I have to reinforce the concept that I'm not doing conditioning with them.
Right.
I'm just teaching them how to run, how to jump, how to cut, all the stuff that they do naturally in their sport. They just don't realize they do.
Yep.
But our lifting stuff, we as of now, I have everybody squat on Monday, we bench on Wednesday, and we deadlift on Friday. And then we're at a point that all of the programs are split up per sport. And I do that if they're either in season of a current sport or they're upcoming for a winter sport. So whatever their current sport or their upcoming sport is the particular program that they're going to be, or that they're following. But primarily as far as the programming goes with stuff, we're doing some sort of power related movement. And I actually do that with the squat, bench, and deadlift. Like I said, we do speed-based reps on those. And then we'll do the strength movement of that same variation. And then usually paired with that as well, with either the speed reps or the regular ones, they're doing some sort of rehab related movement. It just depends on the day or the movement we're working on, but it's something specific to a particular joint. That are kind of common injuries or common hurting points for the kids. A lot of knee, hip, and shoulder stuff.
Yeah.
Some light band work to try to just get some activation in there. But then doing the accessory stuff, we end up, for the most part, 2 of the days is some sort of press, some sort of pull, and then some sort of unilateral leg. And then the third day is a couple of core-related movements and usually another unilateral leg movement. So just trying to get them familiar with stuff, get them used to moving. I've actually started, which I think I'll see a lot of success in. A lot of the core movement stuff I've been doing is some different pal-off series.
Okay.
And that is because it's been tough for me thus far to explain bracing with squats and deadlifts and bench pressing.
Yep.
I can say, hey, the thing we do with the band where you do this and you feel it here, and they go, yeah. I go, do that when you squat. So it is helping. It's a shame that I have to go that route to just teach them how to breathe in and hold their core tight. But whatever I got to do to keep them safe and get them stronger. So,
hey man, I'll walk by some of our athletes sometimes, because even though we've been working on the same thing over and over and over, that's the big reason why we don't go into maximal heavy weights yet. I feel like a lot of the times, you have to earn your way there. You know what I mean? And everybody wants to jump in to maximal first, and it's like they can't even consistently do their reps to make them all look and feel the same. Why would I have them be maximal? But for some of our male athletes, I'll walk by and I'll just punch them easy, and I'm not gonna go all out, but I'll just punch them a little bit in the stomach. And I'm like, hey man, don't let me knock the wind out of you. And then they'll go, oh, okay, and then they'll get the concept. But it does take reminding all the time. Brace. So
that, and I can't tell you how many times with multiple athletes, but the same person multiple times about how to place their feet.
Yep.
And that could even be, say they're doing a set of 5, they're going to change their feet 4 times in that set of 5, and I'm just like, what are you doing? I don't get it.
Your feet are glued in the ground. Don't move them. But yeah, the other thing you said in there that I think a lot of coaches screw up is they'll do speed work, and that'll be married with conditioning. And it's like, no. Those are 2 completely different qualities that you're working on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I'll see some of the guys who are putting out good quality work, like, Galpin all the time is talking about, hey, if you're doing power work, you have to rest 2 to 5 minutes or longer. You don't have to just go right into it, because then you're truly not working on the power or the speed.
Right. Yeah. That's one thing with we just do a lot of our speed agility work in the basketball gym there. And for the most part, I don't work on anything over 10 yards. And that's, if we're doing lineal speed, it's, maximally 10 yards, because I know at that point they are not going to focus enough on their technique and actually truly trying to be fast. So if I get them to do it for 3 to 5 steps, then I'm pretty happy for the most part.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been, I even told him from the get go that I was like, if we're working on sprint technique, I'm looking for three main things. When you can perfect those, that I can start getting picky with stuff. But very few people even perfect those three things. I mean, I don't try to reinvent the wheel with any kind of speed training. I stick to just very short bursts of maximal speed, whatever your maximal speed is. And then I just kind of watch them and say, hey, let's try to take a little bit bigger step this time. Let's swing our arms a little more. Keep your chin down as you're going through. You shouldn't be looking up at the sky.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I try to keep that very basic, and even doing lateral stuff, forward, backward, hip turns, all of it. I try to keep it as basic as I can, and something from working with Lee Taft when I was at Ball State, rather than trying to completely change their technique on it, maximize what they can do naturally. Obviously, if they're in something that's an unsafe pattern or something that is just, going to drastically slow them down, I'll toy with some stuff. But for the most part, I just let them move naturally and try to give them tips and cues like I do when they're squatting or deadlifting or doing any movement in the weight room.
Yeah, because I think that is an interesting topic, like especially when you're talking speed, acceleration, deceleration, change of direction is, what are they going to revert back to? Because even though you want those angles to be perfect and ideal, like there's certainly optimal angles, what can we do to make that what they're going to fall back to are those optimal angles,
Yeah.
But
and even with the kids I'm working with now, they're all 15 to 18 years old, and they've been running since they were, we'll even say 5 years old, where they actually maybe started running. But even before that, they were, running around. And so there's 12 to 15 years of untaught running movement that, it's tough to reverse that. It just takes a lot of time and a lot of, the person's got to really want to do it too. Is a big, so.
Right. Because I remember one time I was talking to Robe about speed work, and of course I was overcomplicating it and just asking him a million questions, and he cut me off and he goes, "Dude, running is just catching yourself falling over." And it really takes that simplicity though to get great at something. And I don't know, that just made a hell of a lot of sense to me, because when he said that, it's like a light bulb went off, and it made anytime you work with an athlete on speed, like, oh, I'm just trying to catch myself falling forward. But anyway, but yeah, man. So you're obviously teaching all the basic movement patterns. Have you got into any Olympic lifting with them yet, or variations of those?
I unfortunately have not yet. I've actually had a good handful, more than I thought, of kids asking me about when they would, or when we would start doing cleans. For the time being, because of the weight room that we're currently using, it's just way too small of a room. I can't safely have multiple barbells get thrown up in the air. It's a room that's probably not a whole lot bigger than this garage. Which is the room itself, maybe a 30 by 30, and there's racks and bench presses and leg presses and stuff in there. There's just a small walkway around all of those that if I tried to do cleans, I know somebody's going to get hit with a barbell. And it just isn't worth it to me at this point in time. And once we get the new weight room, we'll have platforms designated for it. And I even told them all, because of some of them were trying to brag about their ability to clean. And so then, I even told him, I was like, just like we started with the squat, we're going to be starting with PVC pipes and broomsticks. Mm-hmm. You're going to learn to move. You're going to learn the correct pulling motion of the bar, how to drive your legs, how to do all this, all of that. Because I don't care that you can clean 135 now. I want you to properly clean 45 next year.
Right.
And so, I can't wait to start doing it. I have the only thing that would even, I guess, be kind of related to it. I've started incorporating some one-arm snatches. A couple different people I've incorporated some dumbbell split jerks, just trying to teach some That's kind of one of those set power movements that I've been doing, just to add in some more stuff and start getting them used to some of the movements that once we actually have our full weight room done, I'll be able to start incorporating a lot more.
Right. Now, do they have, are you guys doing any kind of any kind of jumping or medicine ball throws or anything like that?
We are doing, I have actually with some of the sports that are jumping related, or not baseballs, I'm sorry, your basketballs, your volleyballs, those ones I have programmed some jumping with them. Baseball does some broad jumping. I did on the very first 4 weeks. It was just kind of the regular GPP program for them. Everybody did some form of a jump each day. We would do our strength movement for the day, and they paired that sort of palette, which is usually a jump. It was squat jumps, broad jumps. But yeah, when I've been incorporating on their speed agility days, usually we've been ending with some sort of jump as well.
Gotcha.
Just trying to figure out how I can fit it in best with stuff.
Sure. So that's cool though. It sounds like you've got, like your heavy days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then your speed days, basically Tuesday, Thursday. Is that right?
Yeah, most part, pretty much. It's pretty simple way to explain it, at least.
So something else we were talking about a few minutes ago was, basically teaching athletes how to move properly and being willing to take a step back so that you can go 2 steps forward later, which I know is a very difficult concept for especially young kids when they're eager and they want to go, want to add. But, they forget that, 1 RMs or 2 RMs or whatever is just a display of strength. It's just one form that's a display of strength. There's a lot of other ways to express it. So, anyway, I follow you on Instagram and keep up with you on how your lifts are going and all that stuff. And didn't you have like a knee injury about a year ago or 2 years ago now that you're coming back from?
It was 2 years ago. I blew my hamstring out.
Okay.
I've battled a busted knee for about 4 or 5 years now. It'll heal up, and then I will slip on some ice during the winter or something that I shouldn't do, and it'll flare up again. So I've had to deal with that a while. But yeah, 2 years ago I blew my hamstring out.
So how's your training changed just for yourself? After that happened, like I saw, what was it, 1 to 2 weeks ago, you set a record on your deadlift of, going from, okay, I've killed my hamstring to now I'm setting new records. What was that process like?
Yeah, so it was coming up almost 2 years ago. I was in a strongman competition. It was the second one I was doing, or second one I'd ever done. And one of the events was a max effort deadlift, but it was basically like a block deadlift. So it was starting kind of high shin, which for me has always been my worst part of my pull. That's where I feel like the hamstring is the most loaded at that point.
Right.
But I had actually a little bit backstory on that. Deadlift was always it always has been one of my favorite lifts.
Yep.
Movements perform. I think it was 2 years before that I had my all-time max set at 575.
Gotcha.
And I always jokingly said my biggest regret that day was not deadlifting 600 because I think I could have done it then.
So you were feeling it that day?
Oh yeah, but that 575 was about a 30-pound PR, so I was like, okay, I'm good with that.
Right.
But yeah, so for building or prepping for that competition, I was actually doing a lot of those high block or high shin block pulls, just trying to get that starting point down. And it was actually about a week before the competition day. I was doing them, and I felt a little tightness in it, and I called it early that day, didn't have any problems or anything major. Did some rehab work on it, was good to go. But then on competition day, there was a lot of things that just didn't work in my favor. They changed my starting weight of my weight class. The way they ran it was not very structured. They basically said, we're starting at this weight. When your starting weight comes up, you can jump in. So I did a warm-up pull at 500 pounds, and then I had to wait about 20 minutes before I could jump in at 565, which was damn near my max.
All right.
So no, nothing was in my favor there, but I got the bar off the ground, but right about my knee, and I felt it blow.
Oh.
It hurt a lot. Bar went straight down from there, and I barely could walk away from the platform.
I mean, were you completely out of the competition at that point? Like,
I should have been, but I was too dumb at that point to drop out.
You stayed in there?
Oh yeah, that was the second event of 4. There was another competitor there that he gave me the stuff. It was called Equiblock, and it's basically an icy hot for horses. So I put that on.
Are you serious?
It works great.
I ran
shit. As tight as I could. The next event was actually it was basically a max effort farmer's carry. And it was a distance of 30 feet. You had a minute of time to get through it. It was 320 pounds per hand.
Oh my God.
I had never actually picked that up without straps before. But I got it about 20 feet. And then the last event was a max effort stone over bar, which once again was a lot of hamstring.
More deadlifting, you know?
Yeah. So I had done stones one time before the competition, and that was just so I could try to practice them. And the day that I did them, the first time before the competition, I loaded a 275-pound stone, and the day of, I loaded a 290. I was it was my left hamstring that I pulled.
Right.
I was very much right leg favored on it. I had tried to do a 305 stone, and on my first one, I picked it up and went to lap it, and quite get it all the way up there. It fell down, so I went to pick it up again, and because of the fact my left leg was completely done, but I started to try to pick it up, and I actually felt my right leg starting to go, so I just dropped it and called it a day.
Yeah.
I was happy that I was able to still compete and finish the competition.
Right.
But kind of how this started, where we're talking about starting at 1 or ground zero, that very much put me at it. I couldn't even walk right for 3 weeks because of it healing up. About a week after I had the competition and was starting to try to build back up, I tried to just pick up an empty barbell off the ground, and I couldn't do it properly. I had to basically have every aspect of weight on my right leg still, and I had an extreme amount of pain just hinging over, and so it was very much a restart at ground zero. And I mean, like I said, that's been a 2-year process. I can still remember I did a lot of, at that point in time when I was it was about a month before I was able to start fully deadlifting again. I started doing a lot of touch and go stuff.
Yep.
I felt at that point in time having some more time under tension, and just trying to re-strengthen. I did a fair amount of RDLs when I was rebuilding, but I remember the first time I deadlifted 400 again, the first time I deadlifted 500 again, and that was even the first time I deadlifted 500 again was about a year and a half ago. Well, no, probably about a year and 2-3 months ago.
So anything in the back of your mind at that point when you're going to pull 500, or you just shut off? Because I know you played baseball in college, right? So
yeah,
I mean, you can probably have that mental approach of, hey, I need to just block this out for a minute. Or I mean, do you have any of that when you're heading up to hit 5?
At that point in time, I did, which I guess added fun fact, during my baseball career once in high school and in college, I blew out the same hamstring. So for the competition, that was number 3. And they were all pretty well the exact same spot. So I'm very susceptible to blowing it.
Like a high ham?
Yeah. Right, basically right below my glute.
Man,
Uh,
I've done both hamstrings on separate occasions, and they were like grade 1, maybe grade 2. So not what's yours sound like grade 3 to me. You know?
it was I think it was about as close to completely tearing as what you can get.
Yeah.
It didn't fully tear, but like I said, I mean, I couldn't walk right for about 3 weeks. And actually, each time I did it in high school, college, and for my little previous time, um, they were all, I mean, pretty well similar. My high school one, I was kind of stubborn and still wanted. I was during baseball season,
Yep.
still wanted to play, and so and just being 16 years old, I recover a little better. College, I was also very stubborn because I was my senior year and I wanted to miss as little as possible. So I sat out about 3 weeks and didn't fully recover from it. So it took me longer once baseball season was over.
Yep.
And honestly, even after the second time in college, times after that when I would try to do sprints, I could not build up to a full
Yep.
max 100% sprint. So I just kind of gave up trying.
Man, I mean, the time that I popped one, I don't know. You look back at some of the stuff you've done, and you're like, God, I'm stupid. You know,
Oh,
like there's one time I was doing like a deadlift workout, so already fatigued, tired, and then the gym partner I had is like, "Hey, you want to go run some sprints?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Like that's stupid, you know. So like, second step, I mean, my left one popped, and I'm like, "All right, well, that was genius." You know, so I completely like I'm just laughing because I've done the same thing.
yeah.
And then what I do to my right one? Yeah, man, I've never played a down of football in my life. And then one weekend, some guys and I were just like playing some rec
Yeah.
football out back, and you know, go to accelerate, decelerate, and reaccelerate again, and just pop my right one. Like, hey, dumbass, maybe you shouldn't do max velocity if you haven't done anything to prepare yourself for it. But anyway, um, so
But yeah, what we're I would talk about my mental approach going up to it.
yeah,
I definitely it was tough for me for a little while.
mm-hmm.
Uh, I was at a point for a while. I was still going to go after it. I still had a good mindset going into it. But if I got the bar to high shin and I started to feel anything in my hamstring, I immediately dropped it.
Yep.
So that honestly is a big reason why it probably took me a little bit longer. And I think that was, when it comes down to it, it was a smarter route.
Right.
It was weak enough as is that the littlest fault in my movement could very well blow it again, and then I'm set back another month or two.
Right.
So I very much think I did it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
But it took me from when the first time I deadlifted 500 again. I would say it was at least 3 or 4 months before I was comfortable deadlifting 500 again.
Yeah.
It just was something it was more mental than physical. I just had to get over the fact of I didn't realize that I had built myself back up enough that I wasn't going to hurt myself again.
Yeah.
Not the same way.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that, I mean, so man, we're in we have a small facility. We've got like 1,600 square feet, and we've got, I don't know, right around 100 kids or so. But we basically let them know, like, all the kids that we talk to, this is more of a mental game than a physical game right now, and you have to have the right mental approach going into everything, because a lot of kids, I just see them, like, their first thing is to go down this negative rabbit hole of, oh, I don't know if I can, like, if it's weight on a bar or whatever. If they're coming back from an injury, they're freaked out, and I get it. I mean, I've injured myself 3 or 4 times just not knowing any better, or else just being stupid,
Right.
and basically just reinforcing. That's why we build back up gradually over time, and
Yep.
then just developing that relationship so they know we're not going to put you in a situation where we think you're going to get injured. I mean, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
But Yeah, man. I mean, the mental game is just huge, and I think that's kind of an untapped market. Where
Yeah.
people need to understand that it is largely mental, not as much physical as you think.
Yeah. That's, I mean, even with, I mean, the mental aspect of it and just regular, I mean, the movement patterns and stuff.
Hmm.
Uh, One of the biggest things that I found with the kids I work with is finding something to compare to the sport they play.
Hmm.
Uh, so as far as the mental aspect of it is, and it was something I actually from lifting I learned from playing baseball, especially in college. Um, I mean, every baseball player, especially hitter, if you ask, they may not say they're superstitious, but they have a routine that they walk up to the plate and do the exact same thing every single time.
Yep.
And if it doesn't work for a while, then they change it to figure out until something does work. And everybody that I've ever played with, if you watch them 10 times in a row, they do the same thing every time up to the plate. Uh, so I very much if I'm going on a heavy squat or a heavy deadlift, I try to keep my setup the same because it's what feels natural to me. It's what I've got comfortable doing. But also, as far as the mental aspect of it, I used to, because I was someone for whatever reason, I was a good hitter, but I always got nervous right when I was on deck and getting ready to go up to the plate.
Hmm.
And rather than having the thought process in my mind of where am I going to hit this ball or I'm going to try to hit it to accomplish this, I kind of always just had that I just don't want to strike out mindset,
Hmm.
which is
Gotcha.
I don't have a good reason for it. Like I said, I mean, I was a fairly successful hitter in high school and college. Um, but for whatever reason, every time I would go up to the plate, I was on deck. My heart would start racing, and I just kind of had that. Let's just try to not strike out. The best thing that I came up with to help it was some rhythmic breathing, some breathing exercises
Hmm.
where basically I would inhale as much as I possibly could. And my inhale and exhale, I would try to treat it like I was breathing through a straw as well. So it was very much like a very slow, very long, drawn out inhale. Same thing on the exhale.
Hmm.
I would inhale for minimally 6 to 7 seconds, try to hold my breath for about the same amount of time, and I would try to double that time when I exhaled.
Okay.
Um, and that always just helped calm my heart rate down, got me just in a good mindset. Um, and so when I do a lift, I don't necessarily do that exact same breathing setup,
Right.
but I do some form of a rhythmic breathing with them. My squat's slightly different than my deadlift is just because of my setup. But yeah, I mean, that's just as far as my mental game of it. It was very much something I learned from playing baseball. So I try to do the same thing with my kids. It's easier to do it on some of my baseball, softball players because I can say, hey, get set up in a similar mindset that you are going to walk up to the plate.
Mm.
With some of my basketball players, it's you're shooting a free throw and you're down by one with 5 seconds left to go. How are you going to calm yourself down and get yourself in the right mindset to hit this free throw or to do this or to do that?
Right.
So that's very much one thing I've tried to incorporate as far as the mental game of training and whatnot is comparing it to something that relates to what their sport is, because I think that's something that makes it easy for them to understand.
Right. Because all she'll say is like, "Oh, it hurts. Well, just don't do it anymore." It's like, well,
Yeah,
that's not solving the problem.
yeah.
So.
That's even there at Westdale. I've had a few people, a couple of football players, volleyball players have gotten just some. I mean, I don't even want to say injured, just some beat down during season,
Yep.
and I mean, try to shut them down like right away. And you shouldn't be doing this, doing this. You need to ice, and do this 3 times a day. And I'm just like, no, you got to move.
Yep.
You want it to heal, you got to move. And like, I had a kid after week one, a football player. I would say, I mean, it was very much a level or a grade one strain, but
Right.
strained his back a little bit. And literally, I mean, the Monday after game one, he couldn't even lift his arm above his head. It was pretty well. He was here, and it was terrible amount of pain.
Yep.
And all I did each day, we went through some band shoulder distraction. I just tried to open him up again. I had him trigger point with a softball, and by Thursday he was already bench pressing again.
Yeah,
It was
man.
just something he needed to move. He needed to open it up first, and then needed to move. And he was bench pressing on Thursday. He played week 2 on Friday. He was
Yeah,
good to
because we get emails about it. Like we've emailed out. I don't know how many times. It's like if you're injured, whatever you've injured. If you've injured your hand, you've got another hand, and you've got two legs that work. Like, still come in. Like we'll have athletes who text us or call us or email us, and they're like, "Yo, I hurt my ankle." It's like, cool. Still come in and train,
Yeah.
and we're gonna work around the injury. It's like people have never heard this before,
Yeah.
and like sometimes, man, like I'll probably make a video. I don't know, later tonight or tomorrow, and just like it'll be kind of a sarcastic one, like, "Hey, are you injured? Here is a video, or here's all of our specialty bars. Here's a safety squat bar, a camber bar. We can do other things other than,
Right.
and people just don't know, I guess, or else they
Yeah.
think I should just take the whole week off.
Oh yeah,
It,
absolutely.
it just gets me. So,
I I don't know. I don't personally understand it because I was always somebody I almost enjoyed the aspect of training more than I actually liked playing the sport.
right.
But yeah, if somebody tells me not to train, I'm going to want to train even more.
Yeah.
Um, just like when I blew my hamstring out, when I've had surgery on both knees. After I had my last knee surgery was a meniscus repair in 2015. I went back a week later, and the first week all I could do was rehab stuff to try to get range of motion back. While I went above and beyond and was damn near full range of motion after week 1.
Right.
And so the doctor was like, "Well, you can start getting back to normal stuff." I'm like, "Oh, so I can start squatting heavy again?" And he was like, "Well," he's like, "Let's wait a little bit longer."
Why?
And so I mean, that was more just me being a smartass, but I was smart enough to monitor it. But I mean, I think that same day I went and did a parallel box squat at 405.
Yeah.
Like I felt perfectly fine.
Yep.
I even remember a month after I had healed up, and that was I had my month after appointment, and the doctor pretty well released me and told me to just make sure I was smart with stuff. I'm pretty sure that day I cleaned 300 for a triple. Like, and it was all because I did everything I could from the day of surgery. Like, I was trying to move it around the day of and getting as much range of motion back as quickly as I could.
Yeah.
But
yeah, man. That's one of the things I absolutely agree with 100%. Like I showed one of our coaches the other day the video of John Bros coming back from, like, I don't know, did he have a complete knee replacement or hip replacement or something? And he went back to squatting 200 kilos in like 14 days or something. And
yeah, I don't remember exactly what it was, but Travis Mash was the same way. He had full hip replacement, and it wasn't too long after that. I think he front squatted 400 pounds or something along those lines, maybe even more. I don't remember for sure. But yeah, I wish more people thought like that, but unfortunately, that's not the way it goes.
Yeah, and going back to mindset that we were talking about a few minutes ago, I read an article a while back, and it was titled, "What do gymnasts and Navy SEALs have in common?" And like, this time I'm gonna click on the clickbait and read the article. But basically, what it was saying was, it was giving I can't remember the specific numbers, but it was saying the average person says 15 negative things to themselves in the matter of 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it says the gymnast and the Navy SEALs say 60 positive things to themselves in the same amount of time. And basically, you think about the situations that they're in.
Right.
Granted, a gymnast is not going to be in a life and death situation the same as a Navy SEAL, but a gymnast is essentially on an island. They're by themselves. There's no one coming to help them. So you have to talk positively to yourself and say, talk yourself up. I can do this. I'm gonna do well. I practice. Just whatever. And then Navy SEALs, same thing. I mean, they're in teams of 4, and they're in the worst possible situations you can think of. if you get negative, I mean, it's game over. So you got
Yeah.
to figure out how to be positive, even when the situation's not ideal,
Yeah.
because like I'll watch some of these coaches who will work with an athlete and they don't allow for any degree of variation outside of perfect technique.
Right.
Like that, your heart's in the right place. That's good, but there's going to be situations where the athlete doesn't do the exercise with perfect technique. And
Yeah.
if you're so paranoid about getting injured all the time, you're never going to put any more weight on the bar.
Right.
And that's not advocating for poor technique. It's just saying like, hey, you can put a little more weight on there, and there is a fine line of a little bit of variation this way or that way for a
Yeah.
given lift.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's another thing too. I mean, even kind of flipped into the spectrum, because I mean, every once in a while you get that kid who comes in and absolutely loves lifting and wants to be perfect in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then say, I mean, you're working with them on a clean, and they'll do a great rep, and then the next one they shoot their hips up too high, or they don't stay over the bar, something. I mean, whatever it may be,
Right.
and then they start to get pissed, and you're like, hey. And my biggest thing when if they understand they messed up a rep, say I always resort back to baseball just because that's what I was most
Sure.
familiar with sport wise. But I always go, hey, how many times have you swung a bat and it's been an absolutely perfect swing every single time? You're hitting a home run to dead center field, 500 feet. Well, never, not very often. Exactly. You try to do that though, don't you? Well, yeah. Okay. So when we do this next set of cleans, ideally you want it to be perfect. But a clean is just as technical of movement as it is to learn how to swing a bat or to shoot a basketball.
Mm.
That it's not going to be perfect. As much as you want it to be, every single rep is not going to be perfect. Even world-class people that do this stuff don't do it perfectly every single time.
Yep.
So getting them to understand it more as a sport movement instead of just an exercise.
Yep.
I think is very big.
Because and that's a great point. I remember. Let's see, I was probably sophomore or junior at Ball State, and I asked Robe one time something like, how long did it take you to get perfect at snatching or whatever? And I can't remember who else was in there, but he looked over at him and he's like, it might have been Cole or something. And he's like,
Yeah.
hey, Cole, have you ever seen me do a perfect snatch? And he's like, Cole's like, no. He goes, yeah, I've never done one. And it was a great teaching point because it's like, even though you're always chasing what may feel like a perfect rep, it's not likely to happen. There's always something you can go back and watch film on and say like, okay, my shoulders and hips need to go up together. I need to push with my legs here.
Mm-hmm.
Even Lasha, man, like
Yeah.
I saw his training video from I think it's today that Hook Grip posted it. A clean and jerk 267 in training.
Yeah, I saw it.
I'm sure if he watches it, he's probably like, yeah, I need to work on footwork or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not that I would ever judge his 267 kilo clean jerk.
No.
But when he was standing up with the jerk, like obviously he didn't stand up completely sturdy, like it was easy, like perfect split jerk. I mean, he struggled with it, obviously, because it's a heavy amount of weight.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there was something he did that he can do a little better next time.
Sure.
That is going to make that feel a lot easier. But yeah, that's I actually even so I've got a couple powerlifters that I'm working with, and one of them, he's one of my good friends. Like, I mean, I won't shy away from that. So I mean, I can treat him a little differently than I can treat some people. When Eric jumps in, he treats him even worse. But he's done 3 powerlifting meets, and this last one he did about a month ago, he actually cut 20 pounds wanted to drop a weight class. Well, he squatted the exact same amount as what he did his previous meet at 20 pounds lighter. He actually bench pressed more and he deadlifted a little bit less. But he was pissed just based on the number on the bar, especially with deadlifts. And I was like, dude, you're 20 pounds lighter. Like, your body doesn't work the exact same way when you don't have near as much body fat to help you recover from stuff.
Right.
And even just learning, even with losing that much body fat or that much mass, like, your movement pattern is going to shift, just even if it's the slightest amount. Like, you're going to have to learn something different. but we've started not necessarily a new prep, but we're just kind of, starting back over. Not necessarily going back to square one, but we're dropping back down, and we're doing some higher rep stuff. But because squatting, benching, and deadlifting is part of his sport, and he wants to perfect it, I'm working on him being as perfect as possible on those sports. So even somebody he's been training with me for about 2.5 years now,
Mm-hmm.
and we've gotten a shit ton stronger. But we're getting close to that point that the strength's going to start to plateau.
Right.
So what can we do to still put more weight on the bar? How can we perfect the movement just a little bit better so that weight will go up easier? And so that's kind of what we're at in the point now. And it's just like if you're practicing a baseball swing, practicing how to hit a volleyball, you've got to do the repetitions of it, but you've got to do the repetitions with intent.
Yep.
And that's the biggest thing, especially with training too, because you'll get someone who's a star basketball player, and they'll want to spend hours in the gym just shooting around, which is great,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't understand the aspect of, okay, well, I have this awesome intent when I'm shooting basketball. I have to have an even better intent when I'm training in the gym.
Yep.
And that's one of my things I'm trying to. That's a culture I'm trying to create and change in Westville right now. And just get the kids to know it's okay to have fun lifting weights.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Another big thing too.
Yeah, you definitely should be having fun. Is like, and the intent. Like we talk to kids all the time about intent is what matters. And
Mm-hmm.
In one of these previous podcasts, I think it was around 5 or 6. There's a guy who's a PhD candidate at KU. His name's Johnny Miller.
Yeah.
Man, we visited for a while, and basically over the course of our visit, he essentially said, as long as you have maximal intent on everything you do, that's how you recruit the most muscle fibers and motor units, and you're going to get the best results. I mean, that's what it is summed up in a sentence or two.
Yeah.
So is nutrition that different for you guys? And since you're genetically similar, obviously, like, it's interesting just from afar, just to see, like, okay, you do this training and this nutrition, here's what happens. He does this and this, and here's what happens.
Yeah. Especially nutrition wise, we are drastically different. There's a funny picture which I'll have to show you at some point, but it is from when I was about 5th or 6th grade. I might have been 7th. Eric was in high school. I was in middle school, I think. We were vacationing in Florida, and it's just a picture of us sitting side by side. And I used to be a majorly obese fat kid. And he was a stick thin. He graduated from high school at $140 soaking wet. So we were very much complete opposites at that point. Once I got into high school and I got into training and started working out more into sports, I started to lose the weight. When he went to college, they basically told him he needed to gain weight, so he started learning more. And honestly, a lot of stuff he did was a lot of nutrition related stuff that's kind of popular out now. He just didn't know what he was doing. He just kind of did it. But so it's kind of funny. He actually just started doing my nutrition for me a little bit under a month ago. It was initially primed to fuel me to deadlift 600. But then just with us coming into the winter months, and I always usually gain a little bit of weight during that time.
Right.
I wanted to try to avoid that. But so I'm honest. Certain numbers of fats, carbs, and proteins. And if I don't pay attention to that, not necessarily stick to it or to a T, I don't have to be 100% on it. But if I didn't pay attention to my nutrition and what I ate, I would easily weigh over 275. I'm about 240 right now.
Okay.
And if it wasn't for me training and having to at least kind of monitor my nutrition, I'd be willing to bet I'd be on the verge of weighing 300 pounds. Whereas he's the opposite end of the spectrum, because if he didn't pay attention to his training and didn't necessarily eat like he does, he would probably only weigh 150 pounds.
What's he weigh right now?
I think he's around a 190-ish.
Okay.
Here. It jumps 5 pounds per day for him.
Okay.
But yeah, I think he sits casually around 190 to 195.
Okay.
But My goal, I've always liked my weight being around between 220 and 230.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can still train properly at that point. I'm not in too much of a deficit that it's hindering my recovery, and I can still fuel myself the way I need to.
Right.
Usually with that, I just need to monitor what I eat a little more. Whereas he'll probably come home tonight and either have a pizza that he's going to make, or he'll make pancakes or something that he's going to just completely pig out on because he's coached all day and he's probably training right now.
Mm-hmm.
That he can afford to do that. One of my favorite things, though, when we talk about it, and I don't, it's come up in conversation with family probably 10 times, but then just other people in general, because they'll say talk about how he struggles to gain weight because he very much does. Like, he has to eat. I mean, I bet he would have to eat, if he truly wanted to gain weight, he'd have to eat at least 8,000 to 10,000 calories a day. And he's tried it before. He wanted to get up to 105 at one point, and he got sick of eating so much every day that none that he gave up, but he just realized that, like, his body's not meant to be that.
Well, man, I see him eat ice cream and pizza and like pancakes, and I'm like, how the hell are you this lean and you can get away with that? Because I think more similar to you. I got to really pay attention to what I'm.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm going to balloon up. But anyways, sorry to cut you off, but it's come up.
No, you're good. So when that exact conversation always comes up, whether it's with family or friends or whoever, and he says how he struggles to gain weight and whatnot, then every single answer, oh, I wish I had that problem. And it's just like, no, you really, like, even me who does struggle to keep weight off, like, I understand his end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something that was completely given to him. Like, yeah, he got a little bit better genetics than I did as far as that goes. He got a little more on my dad's side, which has always been kind of a taller, thinner frame.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest thing that he ran cross country all in middle school, all in high school.
Right.
So you're running, say minimally 25 miles a week, probably.
Yep.
But then he was a pitcher as well, all through college. And as far as most baseball coaches and especially pitching coaches go, if you're not throwing a bullpen or you're not doing something that's working on your arm, you're running out the lactic acid, and by doing thousands upon thousands of foul poles. So he spent 15 years almost, probably 12 years, where he just ran. He ran miles upon miles every week. And he's always been someone that he was very active, even growing up and when we were a lot younger. And I wasn't to that extent. I played sports all growing up, but when I had my opportunity to sit down and play Nintendo 64 and eat Cheetos and drink Coke, I did it. So he's just, over the span of 20 years, he's built his metabolism up that and he allows himself to be able to eat ice cream and eat pizza daily if he really wanted to. But he'll even be the first one to tell you too, if he didn't have more nutritious valued food, his body would feel like complete shit.
Yeah.
That's where you'll see he'll get in a lot of his better nutrients early in the day, and then nighttime after he's trained and he's just kind of winding down that's when you'll see that meal that is the pizza and ice cream and pancakes and whatever else he wants to have.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of background that you don't see with him.
Right.
But it's not the sexy thing. So everybody wants to see that he's eating pancakes and pizza.
And that's why I ask, because social media is definitely like a highlight reel, so I knew there had to be something more going on there, but I just can't believe you guys are 3.5 years apart. Shit, I thought you guys were freaking twins, man. But
nope.
So he's the older one, huh?
He is, yeah. That was always a funny thing, especially when we were in grad school and before I could grow a beard, because we looked a lot more alike, and we'd say something and they'd be like, "Are you guys twins?" We're like, "No, we never. This is our first year meeting." And like a couple people were gullible enough to believe it. But then we would say we're brothers. So then our favorite game was, well, who do you think's older?
Yeah.
And honestly, especially when I was able to start growing some facial hair, everybody guesses that I'm 5 years older or more than him. But I would say usually, I don't know if it's good or bad for him, probably better than anything else. But they think that he's like 23 to 25. And he usually gets my age about right. So he's apparently got a baby face.
But yeah, man. The other thing, the reason I bring that up is because I know we got some athletes who are going to listen to this, and one of the big things that we try to get across to them is the importance of nutrition.
Yeah.
So there's two athletes I'm thinking of right now. We have a female athlete who's a great volleyball player. She's actually going to go to Indiana State this next year, and on a scholarship to play volleyball. But man, when she comes in here, she comes in about 4:00 or so, and I just asked her like a couple weeks ago. I said, "Hey, what have you had to eat today?" And breakfast was literally like half of a granola bar, and then a sip of Gatorade, and then she goes to school, has half of the school lunch, and then has like an orange before she comes here. Yeah. And so she's running on fumes, trying to train hard, and a training background that sounds similar to Eric, Mm-hmm. And then on the flip side, there's another athlete who started talking to us a little bit more about like, hey, he wants to drop off a few pounds. What should he do? And step one was just like, do you know what you're eating every day? Like, are you tracking what you're eating? And he had no clue. So it's two totally different things you tell the athletes, but a lot of them just have never been taught where to start or how to start.
Yeah. I think unfortunately with that too is the ones who, not that they necessarily, if they have been taught, a lot of them haven't been taught the right thing either.
Right.
You get taught what to eat in health class, and that's based on nutritional values from World War II era.
They got the pyramids.
Yeah.
Here, get 12 servings.
Either that or they're like, I've got a couple kids, which one of them, he doesn't necessarily play any sports, so it's not as big of a deal. But he was trying to give advice to someone else, and this kid doesn't play sport. Like, he trains more specifically for bodybuilding
mm-hmm.
versus this kid he was talking to plays football, basketball, and baseball. And he's also training with me. I mean, training in the weight room 4 days a week, and he's never going to be out of season.
Right.
And I mean, that was one thing when I was in high school and younger. Like, I learned the basic stuff that I did was through Muscle and Fitness. Like,
oh yeah,
I'm not ashamed to say it. Like, that's just how it was back then. It was very much bodybuilding style. I mean, got stuff from Arnold, from Ronnie Coleman, from all those guys. And I think most people do that when you start working out. Like, that's just one of the major icons. But it was, I mean, even if you look at bodybuilding from when Arnold was at his peak in the 70s and whatnot versus guys who are winning now, like, even then nutrition is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Let alone when you have to be able to perform at maximal capacity on a football field or a baseball field. And so, yeah, I love hearing Galpin talk about nutrition, even training stuff, because I love whenever his answer is, well, it depends.
Yeah, dude, that's him. He just needs to get a shirt that says, my name's Andy Galpin, ... it depends.
Yeah.
Because that's true. So.
Yeah, because I mean, I've had Eric start running, or he's helped me with my nutrition on multiple occasions.
Mm-hmm.
Primarily, it's been times where I've needed to prep for a meet and needed to cut weight for it.
Right.
This time that we've been doing this last month, it's just because I want to just get on track and have something to be accountable for.
Right.
But like the first time I had to cut weight for my first strongman, I had to cut 22 pounds or so. And he had me on a particular set of macros that, it worked great. I mean, we were right there when I first got on the scale the day of weigh-in. I was about a half pound overweight. Hopped on the bike, sweat out a little bit. Weight was perfect. And I performed really well at that competition.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had trained myself. I didn't just try to cut weight out and cut water out and do this and that.
Right.
Just so that the scale number said that. I still needed to be able to perform at max capacity. my second strongman, which honestly I almost attribute part of my hamstring injury to, I was doing a very drastic version of intermittent fasting,
Okay.
which for someone that is, especially even a high school athlete or even a college athlete, I don't think I would really recommend too much of. But myself, and it was something I talked to Coach Robe about, and it was, I think, had I not been prepping for a competition, it would have been great. But rather than doing the 16-hour fast, 8-hour window,
right,
I actually took it even more drastic, and I only ate in like a 4 or 5 hour
window.
Okay. I still got most of my calories in, but I don't think I still didn't fuel myself properly to be able to fully recover, especially with how heavy the competition was that I had to do.
Yeah.
I love fasting. It worked great. Like, I was doing it for a while, and I steadily dropped the weight that I needed to. But for performance efforts of it, I don't think it's the best option.
Yeah.
Just because, especially with a high school or college age kid, you've got to fuel yourself pretty well throughout the whole day, I think.
Yeah.
And once you're doing that, I think it's a matter of finding the right things to fuel yourself with. Because one big thing that I've heard Eric talk about, and I've talked about a little bit, is you look at like an apple versus a donut. You could have a donut that's going to have the exact same amount of calories as what the apple does, may even have the same amount of sugar, and that's fine. But the micronutrients that you're getting out of it, what's the huge thing that's going to be better for an athlete?
Exactly. Because I see people give that comparison where they're saying, well, if it fits your macros, and it's like, well, yeah, but you're missing out on micronutrients. The other thing is how it goes about getting, basically your body's going to have to expend calories to break down the apple. Right. And it's not really going to have to expend the same number of calories to break down the donut. Yeah, you know what I mean? So, it's just a different pathway there, but, so yeah, well, thanks for going over that. 'Cause that's, I think for some athletes who are, may have siblings or they have a friend who's similar to them, just understanding, hey, your nutrition's probably going to be a little bit different, especially if you're a performance athlete versus, aesthetics or whatever else. But
absolutely.
All right, man. Well, hey, I won't keep you too much longer. Do you want, I guess the last thing, we'll just go over social media. Do you want anybody to have access to you? Do you want to give your email? Whatever you're comfortable with. Just whatever you're on. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have something on pretty much all social media stuff. Facebook's mostly just family related things, so I won't give that. If you wanted, it's my first and last name. Not a big deal. Very active, a lot more active in Instagram and Twitter.
Okay.
Both of those are the same thing. It's B Van Matre 29. So first initial of my first name and then my last name, and then 29 was my college baseball number. So that's on Instagram, Twitter. Trying to think, I don't think I have any other ones. And then my Facebook is just Brandon Van Matre.
Okay.
Email would be, if anybody does want to email me, would be bvanmater29@gmail.com.
Cool. All right, man. Well, thank you very much for your time.